Okay, welcome back after the break. So now we'll have Ilya Buziuk talking about Devfiles and cloud development environments. Go ahead.
Thank you. Wojtek, thank you for the nice introduction. My name is Ilya. I'm a software engineer at Red Hat, and today we are going to talk about Devfile and cloud development environments. You probably all know about this humorous list of 20 answers by software engineers where their program doesn't work. So there are hilarious answers like, it worked yesterday, it must be hardware problem, you probably using the wrong version of the software, but of course by far the most popular is, it works in my machine, right? And if you think about it, you are doomed to have this problem if you opt for local snowflake development environment. And this problem is fixed by definition if you're using repeatable, highly reproducible, on-demand cloud development environments or CDEs. There are multiple implementations of CDEs nowadays, but today obviously we're going to talk about the Kubernetes one. So let's imagine I have a simple YAML file, right? And it's basically the representation of my development environment. And just before the call, I applied this very YAML file, and now I can use kubectl to get my development environment or DV object, so I can execute kubectl get, and I have my Kubernetes object, and it exposes the route, and I can actually open it in the browser. And when I open it in the browser, VS Code opens for me. And what's the beauty of it? It's not only that I have everything available, like source code, I have a terminal whatsoever. The beauty of it is that if you apply the very same YAML file on your cluster, you are going to have the identical development environment with no discrepancies, right? So how it all works under the hood. There is a Devfile CNCF sandbox project, and basically it's an open standard for defining containerized development environments. If you know about Jenkins file, the idea is pretty similar, right? So you have a single file, which is a single source of truth for your pipeline as code. And Jenkins understands this file and creates pipelines accordingly, right? Pretty much the same idea, but for cloud development environments. So here's an example of Devfile. So what we have here, first of all, we have a development image with all the dependencies. It could be like multiple images that boils down to multiple containers. You could have like development images for tooling and another container for database, let's say. You have full control over required resources like memory limit, CPU limit, GPU limit that are now very popular for AI workloads. You can expose application for testing and collaboration purposes through routes and endpoints. Also, you can have the volume mounts. So you can have all the dependencies pre-installed using volume mounts, and so basically have the Maven, Python, NPM dependencies there. And the last but not least, you could have the shortcuts for your favorite commands, running, debugging, testing, deploying your application. There are multiple examples of dev files pre-created in the Devfile registry. I'm going to share the link at the end of the call. Devfile is basically just a specification. But under the file organization, there is also a dev workspace operator project, which is a Kubernetes operator to run fast, repeatable, and scalable cloud development environments. So how it all works. Something that I showed in the demo. So you have a dev workspace object, which consists of obviously Kubernetes resource boilerplate, which is like kind, API version, metadata. In the spec, you have Devfile template. And decoupled from Devfile, you can have the editor contribution. In the demo, we saw like VS Code, but technically it could be any editor that can be containerized, right? And how it all works. Dev workspace operator is in charge of the life cycle of the dev workspace custom resource object, and creates the Kubernetes objects accordingly, which boils down to pods, services, secrets, and config maps. Here are two QR codes. First one for Devfile.io landing page, and you can reach out to the Devfile team on CNCF Slack. The other QR code is for Dev Workspace operator. So this is GitHub project that you can all contribute to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ilya. So now we'll have another break, 10 more minutes, and we'll reconvene at 2 p.m. for another session. Thank you. Okay.
Can you store state in it?
No, I mean, it's stateless.
So if it dies, it dies.
No, I mean, Devfile itself is the specification. So it's nothing but spec, right? If we talk about Dev Workspace object, so the state of it would be persisted, for example, in persistent volume claimed. If you talk about the state for Dev Workspace, it would be naturally the source code, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
Because sometimes we have people that are working on some features, and before they can really commit this and upload to the Git repo, they need to work on it a few hours. So we want to be sure that they're not going to lose their work.
Absolutely. So it's persisted in the persistent volumes, but obviously you can have volumes of type empty-dir. So that would be like ephemeral workspaces. Of course, you can use PVC and you can use different storage backends. So block storage works the best. So like AWS, CBS. But yeah, so if we talk about development environment, we naturally talk about source code and its persistent volumes, right?
Okay, thanks. Another question, did you try to migrate, for example, from one cluster to another with data?
That's great question. And yeah, so we are trying different approaches. Because as I showed so it boils down to the fact that we are dealing with Kubernetes objects, and with custom resources, that's the beauty. So you can basically have the abstraction on the Kubernetes level. And for me, like backup and restore, and if we are talking about this, it should be done not on the like Devfile or Dev Workspace operator level, but on the level beyond, right? So it boils down to the fact, hey, folks, how we back up and restore Kubernetes objects from one cluster to another. And there are like projects like Valero. I think there are some other solutions, but to be honest, I'm still kind of in investigation mode right now if it's really good fit. What we come up with is a proof of concept based on backup and restore based on the images. So like you could have a cron job running periodically that would back up your like source code literally into the image, push it to your registry periodically, and if something went wrong, like you can restore from this image, right? Yeah, so this is kind of a solution that is tied to cloud development environment use case, but I would ideally like to see solution that is like Kubernetes native rather than something specific to CDEs. So if you know anything about any interesting projects, please let me know. I would be happy to chat. Because it's indeed a very, very good question and a very natural problem, how to migrate from cluster to cluster, how to do backup and restore. All right, thank you, folks.
Thanks.